Good evening, students. My name is Sachin Prakash, and today we are going to discuss metallurgy of iron in the fourth lecture of metallurgy. Okay, today we'll be discussing about first about metallurgy of iron, then we'll be discussing about metallurgy of copper, and then we'll be also discussing about like refining techniques. Okay, so let us start with today's lecture. Okay, so when we are talking about the metallurgy of iron, the principal ore of iron is hematite, which is Fe2O3. Okay. Apart from that, you have magnetite, Fe3O4, and copper iron pyrite, FeS2. Okay, this is magnetite. Okay. So you see, magnetite is an magnetic ore. So if depending on the nature of ore, we will be going for different methods. For example, for Fe2O3, we go for gravity separation because it is heavy ore and impurities are light. So impurities can be lot of impurities can be removed by the density separation method. Okay, if my ore is Fe3O4, we go for the magnetic separation method. If it is FeS2, which is a sulfide ore, we go for the fourth flotation method for the concentration of ore. Okay, now you see, after that we go for calcination in a reverberatory furnace. Reverberatory furnace is what you say as having temperatures ranging between 500 to 1000 degrees centigrade. Okay, so you see in this case the fuel does not okay, the fuel doesn't come in direct contact with the charge. Okay, and calcination is done in a very limited supply of air. Okay, literally absence of air. So what will happen is that the moisture will be removed. So if I'm talking about a calcination step, any hydroxide of iron will be converted into oxide. Okay. Now, so you see, reverberatory furnace is you can use for oxidation as well as reduction. Okay. So like if you are using it for roasting, then it is oxidation. TBS will be going to TBS plus O2 will be giving like TBO plus PbSO4. Okay. Similarly, if you are doing the roasting processes, because you are giving limited supply, these reactions can also happen. Okay. So if you are talking about CuFeS2, and then you'll be getting like Cu2O plus FeO plus SO2. These are the reactions which can occur in the river. So river, 1 minute. Reverberatory furnace. So you can do calcination and you can also do roasting in this. Okay. Now you see what happens during this is that since you are using partial or limited amount of air, oxidation of some of the impurities also takes place into volatile oxide. So sulfur becomes SO2, phosphorus becomes P4O10, arsenic becomes AS2O5, and this will be escaping in form of gases, and that will make the ore porous. Okay, so and porous ore is more suitable for reduction because surface area increases. Okay, as porosity increases. Okay, so you see Fe plus O2 gives Fe2O3. These reactions will also take place in limited supply of air. FeCO3 will be, like, 1 minute. Okay, let me just wait. Okay, so you see, since the supply of ore is of air is limited, okay, some of the FeO is converted into Fe2O3. If you have FeCO3, then it first gets into FeO plus CO2, and thus partial supply of oxygen and convert it into Fe2O3. Okay, so you see, similarly, if you are having FeS2 and you are having O2, so you see, calcination in limited supply of this limited supply of air converts all the other O's into Fe2O3. So ultimately, we are going to, do the carbon reduction of Fe2O3 only. Okay, so it is very important that we convert everything into Fe2O3. Okay, next is the smelting step. Okay, so after that, you have the carbon reduction step, which is also known as smelting. Okay, and it is done in a blast furnace. So blast furnace is something like, big furnace type of thing. Okay. Okay, and it will be having like multiple zones. Okay, and at the top you are having okay, so let me just draw the stuff. From the top, the furnace charge is, like supplied. Okay, and it is having, like the bottom is obviously, like heated with some, heat source. So what is going to happen is that generally we divide it into 4 zones. Okay, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, so and all zones are having different temperatures. So you see this zone is like 1400 to 2000 degrees centigrade. This zone is from 1100, 1300 degrees centigrade. Okay, as we go up, the temperatures will be decreasing because we are supplying heat from down. So the lowest zone will be having the highest temperature. Okay, as we are going up, the temperature will be decreasing. Okay. Now you see, what is going to happen is that, so this is the outlet for exhaust gases. Okay. From here, we are going to supply in this zone, we're supplying hot air. Okay. From here, we'll be getting like molten slag. Okay. And here we'll be getting pig iron. Okay. So you see, hot air can be supplied from both sides. Okay. And you see, this is a molten slag coming out of it. Okay. So okay. So you see the furnace charge is basically a mixture of ore plus coke, which is the reducing agent, plus limestone. which will be giving the flux. Okay, in the ratio of 8:4:1. Okay, so coke is the reducing agent, limestone gives like CaO, which is the basic flux. It will react with SiO2 and gives silicates. Okay, so what are the reactions in the furnace? Okay, first we will be talking about the impurity removal. So first reaction is a calcium carbonate gives CaO plus CO2. Okay, this calcium oxide, which is the basic flux, reacts with the acidic impurity. Okay, so you will be getting CaO plus SiO2 will be giving CaSiO3. Okay, now you see the carbon which is here will be reacting with C to give Fe plus CO, and Fe2O3 plus CO will be giving Fe plus CO2. Both reactions are happening in the, so you see the reduction reactions, okay, are basically Fe2O3. Both carbon and carbon monoxide will be acting as reducing agent. It will be giving Fe plus CO2. Okay. Now carbon, so we'll be talking about where these reactions are taking place. Okay. So you see, let us talk about the reactions taking place in different zones. So you see reaction zones in the blast furnace. Okay. So you see the blast furnace is in front of you. Let us talk about the reaction zones. Now you see, we have discussed in the previous chapter that for higher temperatures, T is greater than like 710 degrees centigrade. Okay. Carbon going to CO is the best reducing agent. Okay. This represents the higher temperatures, which is at the lower zone of blast furnace. Okay, and T less than 710 degrees centigrade. From the Ellingham diagrams, carbon monoxide is the better reducing agent. That is at the higher zones of blast furnace. Okay. So you see, the first zone is also known as a reduction zone. Okay, 400 to 700 degrees centigrade. Here, all the ores are reduced to crude metal. Okay, and here CO is the main reducing agent. Okay, because the temperature is a lower temperature. At lower temperature, CO is the best reducing agent available to us. What are the reactions which will be taking place in zone 1? In zone 1, what will happen is that Fe2O3 will react with carbon monoxide and you will be getting Fe plus CO2. Okay. Now you see, FeO is not reduced here. FeO requires, higher temperature. FeO is not reduced here. Okay. And Fe3O4. Fe3O4 is basically Fe2O3, not FeO. So you see, Fe3O4 is reduced to FeO here. Okay. Fe3O4 plus CO gives FeO plus CO2. Okay. So this is the reaction taking place. Now you see, due to this escaping CO2 gas, the iron which is formed here becomes porous and it is known as spongy iron. Okay. So this is the important point. Okay. You get spongy iron in the first or the topmost zone. Okay. And this iron will be like, once this iron is formed, it will be going down because, So next is your slag formation zone. Okay. Slag formation zone is this one. Okay. The slag formation zone is 800 to 1000 degrees centigrade. It is the upper middle part. Okay. So here the temperature is, like mediumly high, and slag formation reactions will be taking place here only. Okay. So what will be happening is CaCO3 will be decomposed to give CO and CO2. This CO2 will be reacting with carbon to give CO, which is acting as reducing agent. Now here the reactions which will be taking place will be FeO plus CO giving Fe plus CO2. Okay, because here also CO will be the principal reducing agent. Okay, carbon starts acting as a reducing agent at in a lower zones, with zone number 3 and zone number 4. Okay, CO2 plus C gives 2CO. Okay, and Fe2O3 plus carbon gives Fe plus CO. So all these reactions are taking place simultaneously. Okay, calcium oxide reacts with SiO2 to give calcium silicate, which is the low melting point fusible slag, which it melts easily. It is having lower melting point. Okay, so this slag is lighter, so it will be floating on the top of the metal, crude metal. It can be separated out. Okay. After this, you have the fusion zone. Fusion zone is zone number 3, which is this zone. Okay. Here the temperature is 1100 to 1300 degrees centigrade. Okay, and this is the melting zone. Here the spongy iron which was formed in the first zone melts, and all the dissolved impurities, okay, are oxidized. All the dissolved impurities like carbon, silicon, phosphorus, sulfur, and manganese are oxidized. Carbon is going to CO2, Si is going to silicate, phosphorus is going to phosphate, sulfur is going to sulfate, manganese is going to manganese. Okay, and in this all slag melts, and ultimately it will be floating on the top of the molten iron. Okay, and last one is the fourth zone, which is the combustion zone. This is the highest temperature zone. Here, carbon will be reacting with oxygen to give CO2. This only this reaction will be taking place here because this reaction requires lot of activation energy. But at the same time, it is also highly exothermic, which raises the temperature of the zone. Okay, so these are the different zones in which so you see the main reductions of iron is taking place in zone 1 and zone 2 only. Okay, so these are the reduction zones. So most of the iron is reduced in the first zone and second zone. Okay, so FeO is reduced in the slag formation zone. Always remember that. Okay, because it requires higher temperature for reduction. Okay, now after this we are talking about forms of iron. Okay, so you see, when you're talking about forms of iron, you see, you are starting with Fe2O3, which is the iron ore. In the blast furnace, what you get is pig iron. Okay, now you see, pig iron is having very high carbon content. Okay, it is having very high carbon content, like 4 to 6% carbon. Plus, it is having high impurity content. And that is why, this iron is of no use for us. Okay. And it is highly impure. It is containing, silicon, phosphorus, okay, sulfur, manganese, okay, and the sulfates. So the impurity content is pretty high here. Okay. What we do is that if we are, melting this pig iron and doing oxidation, okay, then what we get is wrought iron. Okay, wrought iron is the purest form of iron. Purest form of iron, okay, its carbon content is very low, like 0.1% carbon, okay, and most of the impurity, and it is mainly present in the form of cementite, Fe3C. So cementite is a combination of iron and carbon. Okay, it is like ferric carbide. This wrought iron can be, in this wrought iron we can add controlled amount of carbon to get steel. So you see, steel basically is not the purest form of iron. Lot of confusion is there. Steel actually has more carbon content than wrought iron. Wrought iron is the purest form of. So if you are talking low carbon steel, okay, then it is like 0.2 to 0.5%. Okay, medium carbon is like 1 0.5 to 1%, and high carbon steel is from 1 to 1.5%. Okay, so steel is having carbon content up to 1.5%, not more than that. See, as you increase the carbon content, the hardness will increase, but the toughness will decrease. Okay, means so you see, high carbon steels are used when you need hard surfaces on steel. Okay, and if you want more ductile version of steel, they are low carbon steel. Okay, but addition of carbon as an so steel is an alloy of iron and carbon actually. Okay, and we can add some other metals like manganese, chromium, to get like different properties. Like stainless steel will be having chromium and nickel. Okay, so this is about steel. So okay, now steel is a whole branch in itself. Okay, in metallurgy, and it is quite important. Okay, so but okay, now you see pig iron. Pig iron is formed by melting and oxidation of the scrap iron. Okay. Eh, okay. So if you are like melting and oxidation of pig iron in what you say as a reverberatory furnace. Okay. Along with some amount of carbon, you get cast iron. Now, what happens that when you are melting and doing oxidation, the impurities get oxidized. And since you have added carbon, the carbon content increases. Okay, the carbon content now increases from 2 to 4%, and the product which you get is cast iron. Okay, and the slag impurities will be like fibrous impurity. Okay, that will be that can be removed. Okay, now you see, in case of cast iron, it is having excellent flow characteristic. Okay, so that is why cast iron is used in casting processes. So you see the big blocks of machines which are made by casting processes, they use cast iron. Okay, so even the cast iron is having high carbon content. That high carbon content is helping it to flow very easily. Okay, pig iron is having a high carbon content. It is having too high carbon content. We don't require that much. See, very high carbon content will induce brittleness in material. Okay, which is not good. It won't be able to absorb shocks. Okay, but immediate, like 2 to 4% is an like uh, optimal carbon content, which what you say as retains the excellent flow characteristic of molten iron, and gives us sufficient amount of like tensile like toughness. Okay, now you see all these impurities like phosphorus, manganese, and SiO2. Okay, they are converted into slag through the oxidation reactions. Okay, the phosphorus is converted into P4O10, and that reacts with like Fe2O3 to give Fe3PO4 whole 12. Okay, all these are the Mn is converted into MnSiO3. SiO2 is converted into CaSiO3. Okay, so these are the different forms of iron. Okay, a detailed discussion on this will take this whole discussion in the realm of material science. Okay, but we have to focus only on the metallurgy in this chapter. Okay, so this is all in the extraction of iron. Okay, next is metallurgy of copper. Next is metallurgy of copper. Okay. Okay. Now you see, we're talking about metallurgy of copper. Okay. Now copper is mainly formed in forms of main ores like CuFeS2, which is nothing but a combination of Cu2S and Fe2S3. Okay. So main is copper pyrites, which is basically CuFeS2. Okay, it is basically a combination of Cu2S plus Fe2S3. Okay. Along with this, you also have, sulfide of copper, which is copper glance and cuprite, Cu2O. Okay. But main node is copper pyrites, which is a sulfide ore. So you see, sulfide ore is there, then we will be using the froth flotation process for the concentration of ore. Okay. After that, we go for partial roasting in a reverberatory furnace. Okay. So in a reverberatory furnace, when you're doing a partial roasting, what will happen is the CuFeS2. Okay. If I'm talking about partial roasting. Okay. Then CuFeS2 plus O2. It will be giving Cu2S plus FeS plus SO2. Okay. So you see, after this, what will happen that this Cu2S will further react, it will undergo partial oxidation, okay, to give Cu2 plus SO2. Okay, FeS, because iron is having high tendency to react with oxygen, it will be converted into FeO plus SO2. Okay, so these are the reactions which are taking place during the. So you see, since iron is more reactive than copper, so hence FeS is preferentially oxidized to FeO. Okay. Now you see the Cu2O form also reacts with FeS to give Cu2S plus FeO. You see, iron oxide is formed preferentially in the partial roasting process. So you see the roasted ore at the end of partial roasting will be consisting of Cu2S plus FeO plus very less traces of FeS, very less amount. Okay, so you see, after that, what we go do is what we call as smelting. Okay, so in smelting, basically we are taking roasted ore, okay, and plus silica plus coke. Okay, now why we are taking coke here? So smelting is basically a carbon reduction process only, but here it won't be giving us the metal. Okay, instead here the carbon reduction, carbon or coke is used to prevent the oxidation of what you say as FeO to Fe2O3. So we are taking the roasted ore plus silica plus coke and we are putting it in a blast furnace. Okay. And this we are doing to remove the slag. Okay. So what happens is that in the blast furnace, okay, the slag formation will be taking place. So you see the role of coke is to prevent the oxidation of FeO to Fe2O3. Okay. So in this smelting process which is done in a blast furnace, what will happen is a slag formation reaction will be taking place. That is the main reaction here. Whatever FeO is here, it reacts with SiO2 to give FeSiO3. And this is the molten slag, which is, taken out. So you see, if I'm drawing the, the lowest zone of blast furnace, then it will be looking something like this. Okay. So you see, the lower part will be containing, okay, the upper part will be containing what you call as slag, while the lower part will be containing mainly Cu2s plus FeS, which was present in minor amount. And this is known as copper matte. Okay, it is known as copper matte. So copper matte is a combination of copper Cu2s and FeS. We have already removed all of FeO in the form of slag, which is FeSiO3. Okay. So this is the lower layer because it is heavier. Okay, and slag being the lighter, it can be removed easily. Okay, so you see the blast furnace step in the reduction of in the metallurgy of copper is to remove iron in the form of iron silicate. Okay. After this, the next step, which is the most important step, is Bessemerization. Bessemerization. So Bessemerization is basically recovery of copper from molten matte. Okay. So you see, matte contains Cu2s and FeS, and I want to get, copper from it. Okay. Now for this we take a special, container which is known as Bessemer converter. Okay, so it is a pear-shaped container. Okay, something like this. Okay, and you see, it will be having a series of tubes through which hot air is passed. Okay, these are known as tuyeres. Okay, through which, and you see, molten matter is kept inside it. Okay, just I am this time using it. So you see, the molten matter is here. Okay. Now, what is going to happen? And then you see these are like hinges through which you can actually rotate this. Okay. Once the reaction is complete, and this, so you see what is going to happen is that when you are in Bessemerization process, which is carried out in a Bessemer converter. Okay, so this is a pear-shaped furnace which is having inner silica lining. Okay, and from here we are supplying hot air. You see the FeS, which is present in matte, is oxidized to FeO, and then it is oxidized to slag because of the inner silica lining. Okay, so you see the reactions will be like FeS plus O2 giving FeO plus SO2. Okay, and this FeO is reacting with SiO2 to give FeSiO3. So you see this is slag. So it floats on top and it can be removed. Okay. Now impurities like sulfur, arsenic, antimony, silicon are oxidized and they escape in the form of volatile gases. So you see all these, the SO2, okay, SiO2, arsenic, in the form of H2O, they all will be escaping in the form of volatile gases. Okay. Now you see another reaction, which is the main reaction which will be taking place, is partial oxidation of Cu2s. So what is happening is that Cu2s will be reacting with O2 to give Cu2O plus SO2. Okay. Now this Cu2O, which has just started forming, it will react with Cu2s to react and give Cu plus SO2. Okay, so this process is what we call as self-reduction. So you see the self-reduction or the auto-reduction, it takes place in Bessemer converter. Okay, and this is the reaction which finally gives copper. So copper is the molten metal here. Copper which is obtained as a molten metal here. Now you see when you are cooling this, then what will happen is that you'll be getting SO2 will be still escaping the liquid copper. So what you'll be getting is copper with blisters on its surface, tiny pointy projections. So we call it as blister copper, and it is like 98% pure. Okay, and then we do electrolytic refining. To get pure copper. Okay. So you see blisters, I have given blisters are mainly on the surface due to the entrapment of SO2 gas bubbles inside the solid copper matrix. Okay. So this is all about metallurgy of copper. Okay. So iron and copper are two of the most important metals. They have huge amount of commercial application. Okay. So, these two metallurgies are very important. Along with that, we have already discussed aluminum and we have discussed about sodium and magnesium along with silver and gold. Okay. Silver and gold are anyways very important. Okay. They're very costly metals. Okay. And desired by every one of us. Okay. So let us now, today we are going to also start refining and purification of crude metal. Okay. So this is a topic which is important. Okay. So you see, we will be defining, discussing the refining technique. I have already discussed the electrolytic refining technique. But you see, the electrolytic refining techniques came very late. With electricity was formally, discovered, only in 1750s. Okay. So before that also metallurgy was there. Okay, it's not like metallurgy, but after electricity was discovered, and this electrolytic cell was also used by Faraday and all those things. Then there was a huge advancement in the purification and refining techniques of crude metal. But before that, we used thermal refining techniques for the purifying metal. Okay. Okay, because when the metal is pure, then only what you say, it can be used in certain high purity applications. Okay, so first one is so the objective of refining and purification is to obtain metal of high purity. Okay, so first one is the distillation technique. Now see, any distillation technique is basically based on difference in boiling points. So generally distillation is used for refining volatile metals. So by volatile metals, we mean metals which are having lower boiling point. Okay, so and these metals include zinc, cadmium, and mercury. Mercury, though, is almost liquid at room temperature. So you see, lower boiling point metals will be vaporizing easily, while impurities won't vaporize easily. So we can collect the vapor or volatile metal vapors in some other container, and condensing it will give us the pure metal. So we take the impure metal, which is volatile metal plus non-volatile impurity. This is my crude metal. And when we are heating, the non-volatile impurities won't be vaporized. Okay, only the volatile metals will be vaporized at lower temperatures. So we can, collect the volatile metal vapors in some other container. Okay, and then on cooling or condensation. Okay, so condensation is basically cooling only. The vapors will be converted into the pure metal. So this is the earliest techniques, and it was quite effective for lower boiling point metals like zinc. Okay, so and mercury. Okay, cadmium, so anyways, were not very much used in earlier times, but zinc and mercury was pretty much used. So this is one of the earliest techniques. Next is liquation. And you see, liquation is a technique which is used for low melting point metals. Okay. Now you see, so you see distillation is used, in distillation we'll be using it for the low boiling point, because we will be getting like volatile metal vapors. Here we'll be using it for those metals which are having like low melting points. Okay, so obviously mercury is having very low melting point, so we can use liquation as well as distillation. Okay, apart from that, bismuth, lead, tin, all these will be having are low melting point metals. Okay, so since these are low melting point metals and they contain what do you call as non infusible impurity. Fusibility means melting tendency. So the impurities won't melt easily, but the metals will melt easily. So you see, what the advantage is that the impurities will remain solid, and solid cannot flow, but liquids can flow, and hence you can separate it from the impurities. So what we do is that we are heating it in a sloping hearth, okay, and so which is maintained at a temperature greater than the melting point of the metal. So you see, we are providing heat here, okay. So and we are uh, pouring down the crude metal, which is also containing solid impurities. And you see, since it is maintained at a temperature more than the melting point of the original metal, the metal will start flowing. So you see, this metal will be flowing like this, okay, and you'll be collecting it here, okay. Now the impurity, oh, okay, so impurities I am showing by, sorry, impurities I am showing by, like this. The impurities will be here only. Okay, impurities won't flow, so impurities will be collected here. But the liquid metal will be flowing down and it can be collected. Okay, so you see the molten metal is collected here. Okay, and you see the pure molten metal you can separate out, and the non-fusible impurities will remain solid. Okay, and it will be remaining there. Okay, so we do not. So the temperature of the sloping hearth is maintained in such a way that the impurities are not getting melted. Okay, now you see in this process, the fuel or the gases which are responsible for heating, the earth, they are not never in contact with the metal. So the metal purity is maintained. Okay. So this is your liquefaction technique. So liquefaction and distillation, these are very old techniques, and it has been used for you know purifying low melting metals and low boiling metals. Okay. Next is zone refining. Okay, 1 minute. Okay. Next is zone refining. We see zone refining and Van Arsdale method. These are what we call as ultrafiltration technique. These are relatively modern techniques. Okay, and they are used for getting very high purity metals or ultra high purity metals. Okay, and so you see, zone refining is basically based on fractional crystallization technique. Okay, it is based on fractional crystallization technique. Now, this technique says that impurities, this is based on the principle that impurities are more soluble in the melt zone than in the pure solid metal. Okay, so if the molten zone is moving, the impurities will be moving along with the molten zone. Okay, so this is the principle of fractional crystallization. Okay, so let us see how we use it. What we do is that we take it in a chamber, and this chamber from outside is surrounded by a cylindrical heater. Okay, now you see inside we have the rod. Let us say the rod is like this. This is my metal rod. Okay, okay, and these are the circular coil heaters. And you see, they will be, forming a melt zone. So you see, this area is a melt zone. Only this area will be melt zone. Why? Because you are supplying heat only in this particular zone of the rod. Okay. Now we are moving the heater like this. Okay. Now what is happening is that this zone is what we call as, this will be the pure metal, because the heater has already passed this area, and this is the impure rod. Okay. Now you see what is happening is that as this And the whole thing is kept in an inert gas atmosphere. No oxygen is there, no gas which can react with the metal is there. Okay. So what will happen is that as you are moving, okay, then the impurities will be, moving along with the melt zone. These are the impurities. Okay, so as you are moving the heater in this direction, then the impurities will be moving along with the melt. Okay, so what will happen is that at the end, the impurities are almost concentrated at the end of the metal. And this part will be pure metal. Not only it will be pure, it will be ultra pure metal. And this technique is known as zone refining. Okay, this technique is known as zone refining. So you see, this is an ultra high purity technique, and it is used for, making semiconductors, for chips like germanium, silicon, okay, gallium, etc. So you see, the principle is that impurities are more soluble in the melt zone than in the solid. So they will be slowly moving along with the melt zone. Okay, while the pure metal will recrystallize. Okay, so you can collect the impurities at the end, and you can just cut it out, and get the. And this process has to be repeated like multiple times to get very high purity. Okay, what do you see? If you repeat it multiple times, you'll be really getting a very high purity metal. So you see, like you can get like almost 99.9999% pure metal in this case. Okay. So you see, this is really a very useful technique, and we get a very high purity metals through it. Okay. Next is your Van Arkel method. This is also a very high ultra, also known as filament growth method. Okay, because the reaction is taking place on a tungsten filament. Okay, and this is also a ultra refining technique. Ultra pure refining technique. So, and this is generally, like the type of vapor phase refining techniques only. Or okay, so what we do is that, and it is mainly used for zirconium and sometimes used for titanium also. So what happens is that we take a chamber, something like what we do is we take a chamber which is like a okay, and you have a tungsten filament. Okay, so what we are going to do is that you fill this with iodine vapors. Okay, and you keep the crude zirconium here. And you connect this filament ends to and electrical power source. Now what will happen is that when you are giving energy, then so this is your tungsten filament. And see, you have an atmosphere of iodine vapor. So what happens is the crude zirconium will react with iodine to form a volatile compound, ZrI4. Okay, at a temperature of 600 degrees centigrade. See, the temperature is higher at the filament and it is lower, as you go away from the filament. So you see here the temperature is like 600 degrees centigrade, at which zirconium reacts with iodine to give ZrI4. This is a volatile compound, and at that temperature it rises up. So you will be getting like vapors of ZrI4. Okay, and when this vapor are reaching here, then what will happen is that at filament the temperature is very high, like 1800 degrees centigrade. Here it will decompose to give zirconium plus I2. So you see you'll be getting like the metal here deposited on the filament. Okay, so this is your, and iodine will be again released. So you see this way the impurities will be left behind while all the zirconium is deposited on the filament. Okay, so this is your Van Alkel method. It is also an ultra high purity method, and it works. So this is used for very zirconium, which is having very high melting point. You see, zirconium doesn't melt here. Okay, that is why it is slightly different from a vapor. It is type of vapor phase refining technique because you are getting an intermediate compound which is volatile. Okay, but zirconium is not a low melting; it is a very high melting point. So even at temperature of 1800 degrees centigrade, it does not melt. So this is mainly used for zirconium, titanium, hafnium, vanadium, silicon, and beryllium. Okay. Next is electrolytic refining. Okay. So this is the last topic which we are going to discuss today. Okay. Now we have already discussed electrolytic refining in detail. Okay. But again, so electrolytic refining is used for metals which are moderately or less reactive, like copper, zinc, tin, lead, chromium, Fe, etc. Okay. And for this, we do electrolysis of aqueous solution of metal salts. Okay. And what we do is that we take the crude metal at anode. Okay. And we take the pure strip of metal at cathode. So what will happen is that anode will start getting dissolved. Okay. So suppose the metal M is here, it will go to M plus ion. Okay. And you see some impurities will be getting down in the form of anode mud. Okay. While at cathode, the same M plus will be, starting to get deposited here. And after some time, this, will become a thicker strip. And then we can take it out. Okay. And so at anode, the reaction which will be taking place is oxidation. The impure copper will be, or impure metal will be oxidizing to give M plus and electron. So anode, in general, I am taking a general material M. It will be going to give M plus plus electron. At cathode, reduction will take place. Here it is impure. And cathode, M plus plus electron will be giving M, which is pure. So at cathode, you will be getting pure metal. Okay, so you see electrolytic transfer. Okay, basically results in transfer of pure metal from anode to cathode. And impurities, okay, of will be in the form of less, if it is less electropositive metals, it will be settling down as anode mud. Okay, Ag, Eu, Pt, Sb, Tel. Okay, and if it is more electropositive metal, it will remain as ions in aqueous solution. Okay, like sodium, potassium, calcium, etc. Okay, so this is the electrolytic refining technique, which we have already discussed it earlier also. Okay, when we were discussing the general principles, and we have again discussed it here. Okay, so with this, we have effectively finished like a section of refining and purification of crude metal. Tomorrow we'll be discussing like oxidative refining techniques and vapor phase refining techniques. Okay, and then we'll be discussing the extraction of zinc and lead. And with that, our course will be finished. Okay, so tomorrow we'll be having not a long class, it will be just a medium class. Okay, and now you can attempt a lot of questions from, lecture sheet and practice sheet exercises. I'm hoping that you are going to do. Okay, and you see, this is a pretty easy chapter. Okay, not a very, most of the things are information based. Only conceptual question which can come is from Eddingham diagrams, which you can, which I think we covered pretty well in the previous class. So now you see, it all depends on how much practice you have done. Okay, a lot of facts you'll be seeing in the practice questions. Please go through them. Note down the important points in your notes only. Okay, and you'll do good in the weekend exam. Okay, so with this, I am ending today's class. I hope that today's class was fruitful for us. Okay, and I hope that you will be continuing with your practice at home. Okay, let us see up to what time this lockdown is going to extend. But you see, you should be treating it just like putting the same amount of effort which you are putting when you are studying in the regular hostel campuses. Okay, so from this is all from my side. I hope that we meet someday. Okay, and we'll be having a live class. Okay, till that time, okay, stay home, stay safe. Thank you.